About a month ago, I covered Honda's most recent recalls, and the recalls in the industry seemingly just get worse and worse. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but when I see the headlines, NHTSA upgrading the probe into a braking issue in 3 million Honda vehicles, I had to look deeper into it. So I went back in time. Honda wasn't even mentioned in 2022. Ford was up at the top with 67 and 8.6 million. Were recalled then for powertrain issues. Volkswagen was right behind them in terms of number of recalls with over 1 million. Daimler, but that's trucks, so that doesn't really apply to most of us. Chrysler had a ton, which is interesting. Chrysler only has just a couple vehicles, a minivan and a sedan. That's pretty worrisome when 3 million of them were recalled, but it seemed to be just exterior lighting. However, that can be fatal if your lights go off on you in the middle of the night. Mercedes-Benz down below, electrical systems, General Motors electrical system, but Honda is nowhere on this list. We go to 2023, top 10 car makers most affected by recalls, and Honda topped the list. They came out of nowhere with a lot of issues. Over 6.3 million, not as much as the 8.6 Ford had the year before. And since my video last month, we've had a ton of recalls. Okay, the K900 and Kia Stinger engine fires, 36,000. All the Genesis sedans recalled for the same reasons. We had 116,000 fire risks over Mercedes GLS and GLEs. We've had airbag issues seemingly for the last decade with the Takata airbag, and more airbags just get recalled seemingly every month. But 147 Hyundai, Genesis, and Kia EVs recalled for faulty integrated charging units, so the 12-volt battery will eventually die, and then your car's a sitting duck, your EV anyways. Chrysler 300 and Chargers recalled for, well, exploding airbags. We've heard about that before. More airbag issues with the Subarus, except instead of exploding, they just don't deploy at all. And Kia recalling 427,000 Tellurides for rollaway risk. That's essentially every Telluride ever made being recalled because they can just, I don't know, the disengaged drive shaft, it just falls out of park and starts rolling away. Absolutely horrendous nightmare situation. Always put on your parking brake for that reason. My dad taught me that. He grew up in the era of the 60s, the 70s, and 80s, and he saw cars that would just slip out of drive and roll away. So he always taught me to put parking brake on, especially if you're on a hill. That remains to be true with the Telluride. Ford recalling 42,000 Bronco Sports Escapes for fire risk as well. So the recalls just in the last month is quite mind-numbing. I saw this morning also Toyota recalling the Prius. Well, luckily it's not life-altering in theory. Faulty door switches. But the supplier's expecting a $71 million loss for the cars produced in the last 18 months. It's all the new Prius. And unfortunately, there's already a Prius shortage. The demand outstrips the tiny supply that Toyota has been building for the United States. These have been recalled in Japan. Are these going to get recalled for the United States? Almost guaranteed. But what's happening, it is suspending new orders for the model due to a problem with rear door handles. Now, the Prius rear door handles are in the C-pillar, and it's not really a door handle per se, at least in normal usage. It's more of like a button with a digital latch, and then you just pull. But there's no moving mechanism unless the battery's dead, and I think there's an additional little button or switch back there. And of course, no accidents have been reported due to the fault. But going from a minor recall like the door handle on the Prius to a catastrophic investigation going on at Honda. We're going to finish up with this. NHTSA upgrading probe into 3 million Honda vehicles. 50 injuries have been reported. There have been almost 1,300 complaints alleging inadvertent activation of the emergency braking system, and they have sudden vehicle deceleration. 31 crashes, according to the NHTSA. If you have a Honda, let me know down below if you've had the emergency braking system activate on you for no reason. If there's no one in front of you and it just goes off. that sounds like a nightmare situation, especially if there's someone behind you. NHTSA's Office of Defects Investigation first opened a preliminary evaluation to Honda in February 2022 to probe 2018 to 19 Honda Accord midsize cars and 2017 to 2019 Honda CR-V compact crossovers. On Monday, here in mid-April, the scope included 2020 to 2022 CR-V and Accords, totaling nearly 3 million vehicles in the investigation, up from the original 1.7 million. Of course, Honda says they'll cooperate with the NHTSA through the investigation and, of course, do their own internal review. After this evaluation, NHTSA will either close the investigation or move into the next phase, usually an engineering analysis. If a safety-related defect exists, the agency could send a recall request letter to the manufacturer. And they say the story will be updated. And yes, it's far from being over. Will I keep reporting on it? Maybe. But recalls, they're interesting, but it's something we don't want to see. Now, back in the day, they wouldn't issue recalls. I don't think the NHTSA was as powerful as it is now back in the day. And so you'd have cars that were just rolling death traps, and people were buying them and dying in them, but there were never recalls or investigations like that on the levels we have in the modern era. And so now we have 3 million Hondas being looked into, and it could be more. It could keep piling up, because what if these braking systems are in more models that they have? And that could include Acura at some point as well. Ugh, makes me sick to my stomach to think about it. Luckily, I have not been affected by this, and I hope all of you watching this have not been affected by it, but there's at least been 50 reported injuries, 31 crashes, from rollaways to fires to exploding airbags to brakes not working to your EV battery pack not charging the 12 volts so it turns into a brick. So many different things recalling vehicles in the past month, none of them good. I'd say, well, obviously any recall would be bad, but the Prius one is the most comical. Their fancy new door handle is being recalled. So I'll see you guys in the comments below in regards to recalls. Hopefully your car is not catching on fire, and hopefully your emergency brakes are not getting you in an accident. Have a great day and be safe.